right. So have you ever had that moment where you're staring down the barrel of your very first speech
Oh, yeah.
and it feels less like this exciting opportunity and more like, oh my gosh, I'm about to walk off a cliff?
Absolutely.
That feeling of, okay, I know I'm supposed to do this, but where do I even start?
It's a common one.
Yeah. Well, if that sounds at all familiar, you're
Yeah.
definitely in the right place. Because in this deep dive, we're going to tackle that very question, how to prepare for and deliver your very first speech.
We often call this an icebreaker speech, right? It's usually one of the first assignments you get in a public speaking course.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to tap into some really fundamental concepts here, drawing from the source material of a public speaking textbook. We're going to give you a shortcut, basically, to understanding the essential elements of crafting and delivering a successful first speech.
Think of this as your foundational toolkit, really. We're going to equip you with the insights you need to approach this experience with a sense of, well, clarity and control.
Exactly. So let's break down what we're going to cover today. First, we'll explore the core strategies for getting that speech. Not just done, but done well. This includes choosing a topic that works, making it interesting for your audience, and structuring your ideas in a way that makes sense, with a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah, it's like building a house. You need a solid foundation.
Exactly. Then we'll shift gears and talk about delivering your speech in a way that feels natural and engaging. We'll discuss why reading from a script or just winging it aren't really ideal approaches and why this thing called extemporaneous speaking is the way to go. We'll cover how to practice effectively and what to keep in mind when you're actually up there in front of everyone.
The goal is for you to walk away from this deep dive feeling more prepared and confident about that first speech, regardless of where you are in the process right now.
Totally. So let's dive in. This icebreaker speech, it sounds kind of friendly, right?
Okay.
But what's its real purpose?
I think it's really smart how this first assignment is designed. Its main goal isn't necessarily to deliver some groundbreaking message, but to ease you into the experience of public speaking. It's about getting over that initial anxiety of the unknown.
Like, almost like ripping off a Band-Aid.
Exactly. Once you've done it, that first hurdle is cleared. And for many people, a lot of that initial fear starts to melt away.
Right. It's like the anticipation is often worse than the event itself. Now, our source material talks about a couple of common types of icebreaker speeches, right?
Yeah, there are a few common approaches. The self-introduction is a very popular one. This is where you share something about yourself with your classmates and the instructor. It could be your background, aspects of your personality, some beliefs that are important to you, or maybe even your goals and aspirations. It's a chance to start building those connections within the group.
Okay, so that's one. What's the other type that pops up a lot?
The other one is introducing a classmate. So for this one, you get to engage with someone else, really learn about them, and then present that information to the class. This requires some different skills, like active listening, understanding someone else's perspective, and then, of course, communicating that effectively.
Got it. So whether you're focusing on yourself or someone else, what's the absolute first thing you need to do?
It might seem obvious, but it's super important to make sure you fully understand your instructor's specific requirements. Things like the time limit, any topics they might want you to focus on or avoid, and any specific guidelines on format or content. You've got to know the boundaries of the assignment, right? That's your foundation.
Okay, so you've got the assignment details down. Now the big question, what are you actually going to talk about? Our source really stresses focusing your topic, especially for a short speech like this. Why is that so critical?
Well, you're working with limited time, right? Let's say 2 or 3 minutes. If you try to cram in a huge amount of information, you're not going to do any of it justice.
It's like trying to fit an entire ocean into a teacup.
Exactly. You won't have time to develop your points, and ultimately, your message will get lost.
Right. And they have that example in the book, trying to squeeze your whole life story into a couple of minutes.
Yeah, totally impossible. A better strategy, and this is what the source suggests, is to pick 1 or 2 significant events or aspects of your life that have really shaped who you are. Those moments that stand out, maybe a challenge you overcame, an opportunity that changed your direction, or a passion that truly defines you. When you focus on something specific, you can go deeper and make a real connection with your audience.
Okay, so it's narrow and deep, not broad and shallow.
Yeah.
But could you go too far in the other direction? Like, could your focus be too narrow for a general audience?
That's a good point. While trying to cover too much is definitely a problem, going too niche can also backfire, especially when you're speaking to a diverse group. Think about it. A 2-minute explanation of advanced trumpet playing techniques, like the book uses as an example.
I mean, fascinating to some, but
But most people would be lost, right? So it's about finding that balance. Specific enough to be meaningful, but also relatable and accessible to a wider audience.
makes sense. So you've got your focused topic. Now, how do you make it interesting? This is where developing your topic comes in. And our source really emphasizes being creative here.
Yeah, it's about going beyond just stating facts, right? It's about engaging your listeners. And I think the sample speeches at the end of the chapter are great examples of this.
Oh, yeah, like the one where the speaker connected different parts of her life to her grandmother's courtyard.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't just a list of things about her life. The courtyard became this central image that tied everything together and gave it more depth.
Right. Or the speaker who introduced a classmate using the idea of fearlessness. That was really effective.
Right. So it's about finding that unique angle that makes even an everyday topic stand out. And speaking of standing out, the source also mentions creating mystery or suspense.
Oh, yeah, like how would you do that in a short speech?
Well, think about starting with a question or a situation that makes people curious. If you're talking about meeting someone interesting, maybe even a celebrity, you could give clues without revealing their identity right away. Describe the setting, hint at their achievements or personality, and then boom, the reveal. It keeps people hooked.
I like that. And the source also mentions that people are naturally drawn to stories with danger, adventure, or drama.
Oh, totally. If you had any experiences like that, or the person you're introducing has, those narratives can really grab attention, like a challenging travel story or volunteering in a tough situation. People connect with stories about overcoming obstacles and facing the unknown.
And then, of course, there's the power of language itself, right?
Yeah.
Using vivid, descriptive words.
Super important. Think about that example of introducing Alexa, the ballroom dancer. They describe the spotlight, the music, her movements. It creates a much more powerful image than just saying, Alexa likes to dance.
It paints a picture in your mind.
Exactly. Okay, let's talk about humor. A good joke can really connect with an audience, but is it always the best approach, especially for a first speech?
Right.
It can be great, but it has to be done well. It should feel natural and fit with your topic, not forced or out of place.
And I think there are some specific warnings about types of humor to avoid.
Well, yeah, for sure. The source specifically says to avoid anything offensive, anything that targets or embarrasses individuals or perpetuates harmful stereotypes. That kind of humor can really damage your credibility. The best humor is gentle, maybe directed at yourself or those universal human experiences that we can all relate to. And when in doubt, sincerity and enthusiasm will always work.
Absolutely. All right, so you've got your focused topic, you've developed it in a creative way. Now, how do you actually structure all these ideas into a coherent speech? Our source talks about that classic three-part structure: introduction, body, and conclusion. Let's start with the intro. What's its main job in a first speech?
Well, the introduction has two crucial roles. First, it needs to grab the audience's attention. You want to hook them in, make them want to hear what you have to say. The source gives a few ways to do this, like posing a thought-provoking question, sharing a short story, making a surprising statement, or even starting with a relevant quote.
Yeah, they used an example from the secret speech, right? The speaker started by saying they didn't know the secret until after spending a year in Thailand. Immediately makes you curious.
Exactly. What is the secret? You want to know more. The second important purpose of the intro is to give your listeners context, to let them know what your speech is going to be about.
Right, so you hook them and then give them a general idea of what's coming. And for longer speeches, they mentioned this thing called a preview statement, right?
Yeah, a preview statement is basically a roadmap. It outlines the main points you'll be discussing, like, today I'm going to talk about the history of jazz, its key musical elements, and its influence on modern music. It helps the audience follow along.
Makes sense.
But for a short speech like an icebreaker, a formal preview statement might not be necessary. You could always check with your instructor to see what they prefer.
Got it. So you've hooked them, given them context. Now it's time for the body of the speech. How do you organize your main points here?
So the body is where you deliver the main content. There are two organizational patterns that work well for introductory speeches, according to the source. The first is chronological order. This is basically presenting information in the order that things happened. It works well for stories or personal narratives.
So, like if you were talking about that track meet experience, you'd start with your training, then the qualifying rounds, and finally the big race.
Exactly. Now, the other option is topical order. This is where you divide your topic into logical subtopics or categories. This is often good for introducing a classmate. Instead of just listing facts about them in chronological order, Maria was born here, went to school there, you could organize it around their interests, their goals, maybe a key personality trait.
And they used that exact example, introducing Maria, and how much more interesting it is to talk about her passions rather than a dry timeline of events.
Right. Topical order lets you create a more thematic and insightful introduction. Now, whichever way you organize it, the source stresses not having too many main points, especially in a short speech. For 2 minutes, 2 or 3 well-developed points are plenty.
Okay, and how do you make sure the audience can follow you as you move from one point to the next?
You use transitions. These are words or phrases that act like bridges between your ideas. They signal that you're moving on. Like in the example about Ashley, you might say, beyond her academic pursuits, Ashley is also passionate about the outdoors. This clearly indicates a shift to a new aspect of her personality.
Little verbal cues can make a big difference.
Absolutely. Okay, finally, the conclusion. What are the essential things to do here as you wrap up? The conclusion has two main goals: to signal that you're finishing, and to reinforce your central idea or message. It's about giving a sense of closure and leaving a lasting thought with the audience. You don't want to just abruptly stop.
Right, it's like ending a song on a strong note.
Yeah, exactly. And they refer back to the secret speech again, highlighting how the conclusion connected the speaker's personal experience in Thailand to a broader understanding of shared human experiences. It revisited the initial intrigue and gave a meaningful takeaway.
So we've got this fantastic first speech, prepared and organized. Now the part that often causes the most anxiety, actually delivering it. The source does say that perfection isn't the goal for a first speech. It's about building a solid foundation.
Yeah, I think that's such an important mindset shift. It's about progress, not flawless execution.
And they recommend something called extemporaneous speaking. What does that mean exactly?
So extemporaneous speaking is like a middle ground. You're not reading word for word from a script, but you're not completely winging it either. It's about researching, outlining, and practicing, but then delivering your speech using just brief notes or prompts.
You know the material well enough that you don't need to memorize every word.
Yeah, exactly. This lets you be more spontaneous, more conversational, and connect better with your audience. You can make eye contact, respond to their reactions, and sound more authentic.
It's planned but flexible.
Right. Now, this does mean you need to know your stuff well, so your notes are more like cues than a script.
Okay, and what kind of notes work best? Index cards, full sheets of paper.
Both have pros and cons. It often comes down to personal preference or what your instructor wants. Index cards are less distracting visually, easier to handle, and you can gesture more naturally. They also don't make that paper rustling noise. But sheets of paper can hold more detailed notes and might be easier if you're printing directly from your computer. The source suggests checking with your instructor to see if they have a preference.
Got it. And regardless of what you use, there are some good general guidelines for making effective notes, right?
Oh, definitely. Write or print large enough that you can easily read at arm's length. Double or triple spacing can make it easier to scan quickly. And write on only one side so you're not fumbling around. Most importantly, try to use the fewest notes possible while still feeling confident. You want key words and phrases, not full sentences.
The source actually points to the Life is a Journey video as a good example of extemporaneous speaking. What did you notice about that speaker's approach?
I thought it was interesting how, even though the speaker clearly had planned their points, they still sounded really natural and conversational. They weren't glued to their notes. They made eye contact and spoke in a way that felt like they were just sharing a story.
And that's something to remember. We do extemporaneous speaking all the time in everyday conversations.
Exactly. You remember the key points of what you want to say, but you adapt the wording in the moment. It's about bringing that same comfort and confidence to a formal speech.
So you've got your notes. What's the next step towards a smooth delivery?
Rehearse. Practice, practice, practice. The source emphasizes that a polished delivery doesn't just magically happen. You might stumble or forget things during your first few run-throughs, and that's totally okay. Don't get discouraged. Focus on getting really familiar with your ideas and the flow, not memorizing every single word.
And rehearsing out loud is crucial, right? Reading silently to yourself isn't the same.
No, not at all. Speaking it aloud helps you internalize the content, Work out any awkward phrasing, see where you need more detail. And once you're comfortable, practice in front of friends or family. That feedback can be really helpful.
Yeah, and it gets you used to speaking in front of people.
Exactly. Oh, and don't forget to time your speech during rehearsal.
Right, because nerves can make you speak faster.
Yeah, you might end up finishing way too soon. So aim to practice a bit longer than the minimum time limit, just in case your pace picks up on the day.
Okay, so you've prepared, organized, rehearsed. It's speech day. The source acknowledges that giving that first speech can be nerve-wracking.
Totally normal. Knowing that those feelings are common can actually make them less intense.
Okay, you're up at the front. What are some things to keep in mind right from the start?
Okay, so as you're walking to the front, focus on your posture. Stand up straight but relaxed, feet shoulder-width apart, arms at your sides. Before you start speaking, take a moment to arrange your notes, make eye contact with the audience, and smile. It helps create a connection.
Simple things, but they make a difference.
Definitely. What about gestures?
Yeah, what about them?
Gestures should feel natural, like an extension of your enthusiasm for the topic. Don't force it or overthink it. The key is to be aware of and avoid any nervous habits, like playing with your hair, fidgeting, shifting your weight, or tapping your fingers.
Right. Even if you feel nervous on the inside, try to project a sense of calm on the outside.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's eye contact.
Yeah, that's always emphasized as important.
It is. Eye contact is a huge advantage of extemporaneous speaking. It makes you look more confident and connected. Try to scan the room, making eye contact with different people. If direct eye contact feels too intense, try looking just above people's heads. It still gives a sense of connection.
Okay, what about your voice? Any tips for using your voice effectively during a speech?
You want to be as expressive and engaging as you are in normal conversations. Project your voice so everyone can hear you, and resist that urge to rush because you're nervous. Speak clearly, slow down, and articulate your words.
And then there's the pre-speech jitters. Any strategies for managing those?
Well, remember, it's totally normal to feel nervous. While you're waiting to speak, try taking some slow, deep breaths. You can also tense and relax the muscles in your legs or squeeze and release your hands. It can help release some tension. And remember, you probably look and sound less nervous than you feel.
It's all about perspective, isn't it? It's your first speech. No one expects you to be perfect.
Right. The goal is to do your best, learn from the experience, and even try to enjoy it. By planning, organizing, practicing, and using those extemporaneous speaking techniques, you might actually surprise yourself and have a good time.
So let's quickly review the key takeaways.
First, make absolutely sure you know the specific requirements of your assignment. Then, spend some time choosing a topic that works for the time limit and develop it creatively to make it interesting. Structure your speech logically with a clear introduction, an organized body with smooth transitions, and a strong conclusion.
And for delivering your speech.
Embrace extemporaneous speaking. Prepare well, use brief notes with key words and phrases, and rehearse multiple times, ideally out loud and in front of others. Don't forget to time yourself. When you're delivering the speech, good posture, natural gestures, eye contact, and clear projected speech are your friends. And remember, those nerves are normal. There are ways to manage them.
So for everyone out there gearing up for that first speech, remember these strategies. It's not just about getting through an assignment. It's about building a solid foundation for public speaking, one step at a time.
Now that you've got all this information, take a moment to think about this. What's a small personal story or unique aspect of yourself that could be the focus of your introductory speech? What's something that could really connect with your audience? Even something that seems ordinary to you can be fascinating when shared authentically. What's your spark?